Alrighty. All right. Well, let's start,
Sure.
and we'll see whereabouts we end up. Welcome and thanks for your time, Joe. Can you tell us about yourself and how did you become involved with Winspace?
So, yeah, my name is Joe. I'm originally from the UK. I came to China about 10 years ago and got into cycling. And yeah, as everyone, as soon as you get addicted, you get deeper and deeper, go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And being in China, the best place to be, because obviously all the brands are making their stuff out here anyway. So the hobby became more and more of something I wanted to do with my time. And so I started making YouTube videos, a small YouTube channel called China Cycling. And then I went to the Chinese bike show in Shanghai to make some videos for my YouTube channel. And when I was there, I bumped into the Winspace guys. And so at the Chinese bike show, bumped into lots and lots of brands, and they're all trying to just like ram their stuff down your throat. But like on the Winspace stand, like they were just more interested in just talking about bikes and just swapping stories. And it was a lot less pushy. It was a lot less commercial. It was just, you could tell they had like a real passion for bikes. And so, yeah, we got talking and they were like, oh yeah, you should come down to our factory one day. And like, so lots of people had said this throughout the day. But then a few days, like after the event, we go back home, blah, blah, blah. Like Winspace were the only company who were like, no, you should actually come down to our factory. Like, blah, blah, blah. And so first time I came down to the factory and they showed me around, showed me how to make everything and stuff. And I made another video for my channel. And
I
then,
remember.
yeah. And then, so we just got talking some more. And then we were like, oh, well, maybe we can do some more work together. I'll help you make your photos or I'll help you make your internal videos as well. Like blah, blah, blah. And so we just ended up, at first I was doing part-time stuff for them. And then I moved to Xiamen. And so when I moved to Xiamen, I got into an accident on the bike. I got run over by a truck, which wasn't the most convenient thing in the world. And so
if everyone wants to know about that, then check out China Cycling. I think you've got a video on that as well.
Yeah. I don't go into too much detail because it's no one wants to know how close they are to being run over by a truck at any given moment, I guess. So try not to be too negative, but yeah, be safe out there, everyone. But so I just moved 2,000 kilometers to be like at the center in Xiamen. It's like the center of the bike production world now. And so I'd moved here to make videos, and then suddenly I can't even ride a bike. So I'm like, oh, well, this isn't great. And so at the same time, I picked up more just like email work and communication work for Winspace. I was just helping them run their social media and stuff, helping them run their Facebook and their Instagram and replying to any English emails so, maybe lots of the customers, English isn't their first language and English isn't the first language of the Winspace guys either. And so sometimes when you're talking about like really intricate stuff about bottom brackets or blah, blah, it can be hard to understand. So I was just in the middle helping with communication, and it was good for Winspace and it was good for the customers. So everyone was happy. And then, yeah, it just grew from there basically. And now I'm still handling those things. So I handle international communications and I handle like international like social media / marketing for Winspace. So being a YouTuber as well, it means I kind of know what the average YouTuber likes or what they need. And so, and also being so close to Winspace, I know what a bike company wants from a deal too. And so, it's one of those things where it's good for the YouTubers or it's good for the Instagrammers or whoever it is. And it's also good for Winspace because I understand both sides of the fence and can quickly get everyone speaking on the same page, happy days kind of thing.
Excellent. How long has Winspace been around and how and where did it start? Is that more Stephen, do you think, or should...
So I can answer, but in a minute he can answer. He can give a better answer maybe. But so originally Stephen founded a company called Go2Bike, and Go2Bike are the OEM like branch of Winspace. So they also make bikes for other brands. And then shortly after starting Go2, he also started Winspace, which was like his own brand bikes. And so they've been going for over 10 years now. But mostly the Winspace bikes were mostly sold in China for those 10 years. And it's only really in the last year that they've really started to push more towards the international. I mean, they've had a few dealers in the Netherlands and the UK and Australia and Thailand for like a few years now, but it's only in the past like half a year to a year that they've really started expanding their own brand more in the international markets.
And so, in design and manufacture of the Winspace frames, such as 3D design software, 3D printers, automated manufacturing systems, resistance tests, how does technology and experience best interact when designing a bike?
So I think this is a question that could have an hour video in itself to answer. But so I'd say the process of designing a bike and the as you said, how technology is helping that. I think the biggest advantage to being in a place like Xiamen is that we're so close to like the factories. Because usually, if we take one of the big brands, it doesn't matter if it's Specialized or Cervelo, whoever, like they have really big R&D departments of themselves, but then they don't have their own factories and have to work with the factories. And so there's lots of back and forwards, and like there's nothing wrong with that, but there's lots of back and forwards obviously between Specialized's own engineers and the factory's own engineers. But obviously, and Specialized, I think they're in California, and then maybe the factories they use are here in Xiamen, and the back and forth isn't the most efficient. Whereas if you have a company where the bike design team are in Xiamen and the guys who are actually making the bikes are in Xiamen too, then you can have a lot more of an efficient forwards and backwards. So I definitely think that helps and just shortens a lot of the lead times to developing new products, and prototyping and testing and all this stuff just can be done a lot more efficiently.
How big is the staff at Winspace with R&D, the manufacturing guys as well?
Yeah, so lots of it gets spread out. So in Winspace themselves, they have their own R&D team, and then they're also in their factories. They have like the engineers in the factories too, and then they also have like design teams around the world. So there's a guy in Canada who helps out with more of engineering side, like former Cervelo employee, and then there's another design house in Italy who help them with like more of the cosmetics of the bikes, maybe like making the bikes look nice. And my personal opinion, I don't think just because a designer is from said country, they're necessarily a better engineer or whatever. But of course, if you want the best talent in the world, it's very unlikely that the best talent in the world will all be from one country. And so if you're after the best talent, then it's pretty natural that you'll have that from a lot of different countries.
Yeah, absolutely. So the build process, carbon loading process, what is the carbon blends throughout the bikes that you use? And do you pay special attention to the bottom bracket area?
Yeah, so I think these questions, I'll give you a follow-up with Roman, who's the chief technical officer. Like, I don't want to overstep my pay grade. Like, I don't pretend to be an engineer. Like, I know as much as your average bike mechanic kind of knows, but I don't want to overstep my benchmark. Oh, I got Stephen. Hang on, I think Stephen's just finishing his thing too. But yeah, so back to what you were saying about bottom brackets. Yeah, I think these days, especially with the likes of Hambini making his videos, like suddenly now bottom brackets are a hot topic. Back in the day, the weight of your bike was maybe the hot topic because it was something that was easy to quantify. You put the frame on a scale and you can see how heavy it is. But then things like the bottom bracket and the bottom bracket alignment and tolerances, your average consumer has no way to really know what's going on. But it's one of those things where if you don't get it right, the consumer's going to hear it when they're going up a hill and the bottom bracket starts creaking or whatever. And so I'd say special attention is paid to the bottom bracket, but I think it's paid to every area of the bike where you need some sort of interaction between the frame and another component. I think in general, along the cycling press and also cyclists who spend a lot of time on forums and YouTubes, I think bottom brackets are a hot topic these days. But I think like 99% of that is because of Hambini. And I don't think that's a bad thing. But I think the alignment of your head tube is probably just as important. But no one talks about that these days. Everyone's talking about the alignment of your bottom bracket because Hambini's looking at bottom brackets. But no one's talking about the alignment of head tubes. Now, Hambini, he sells bottom brackets. So, of course, he's going to talk about bottom brackets. If he sold headsets, maybe he'd make more videos talking about headsets on bikes. So, sure, the bottom bracket is important, but I think the alignment of your dropouts is also important. The alignment of your headset is also important. So I think you're going to see a thing in the next year or so where these big brands, they start reacting to Hambini and they start publishing more information about the bottom brackets and telling their factories to pay more attention to the bottom brackets to try counter this wave that Hambini has made. But they're probably going to ignore the head tubes because, oh, no one's talking about the head tubes. So let's just keep doing subpar head tubes. And in my opinion, that's kind of like a false prophecy. Like, you should pay attention to all of the bike. Don't just pay attention to the bottom bracket because it's a hot topic now. Like, and that seems to be the ethos here. Like, I also spend a lot of time, obviously, on YouTube, and me and Hambini also talk about stuff a lot. And then I take these conversations and I go bang heads with Roman, who I just said is the CTO and stuff, and we talk about bottom brackets, and he agrees with 99.9% of everything Hambini says, but he'll also say, well, what about your head tubes? Like, what do people say about head tubes? And if you go on YouTube and try to find people talking about head tubes, you're not going to find it. But it's it's as important as your bottom bracket. Maybe you won't hear it as much because you don't have the kind of torque going through it that you have going through the bottom bracket. But if your head tube isn't aligned right, you might end up with a bike that literally turns left better than it turns right or something. Like, for a track bike, that sounds great, but for most of us riding on the road, then we maybe want a bike that steers left and right in equal measure.
So what you're saying is there's room for development for head tubes on bikes that only turn left for track bikes.
You heard it here first.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, coming soon from Winspace. I'm sure some manufacturer who gets caught out having a bike that turns left better than right will say it's a feature and not a bug and try to spin that. But so I'm doing international marketing for Winspace now, and I try to, if you go through our website or if you go through the Facebook or the Instagram, you'll find it's a bit different to the big brands marketing. Like, they like to use that. I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it. They try to use the marketing blurb and blah blah blah. Whereas the Winspace stuff, it tends to be a bit more. What you see is what we get. We don't make everything seem like it's you buy this bike and you'll be able to fly. You'll half your 40K times. Blah blah blah. Like,
for a lot of your photos are your actual bikes, right?
Yeah. Lots of the stuff that goes up on Instagram these days is my own personal bikes or bikes I've built up because I'm biased like everyone. Like, I built a bike that I think looks good, and then so because I think it looks good, I'll send it to the Winspace Instagram or something like. Yeah. Maybe most people hate the bikes I build up and think they're ugly, but hey. They put me in charge, so that was their dumb fault, I guess.
So should I leave the questions for? I've got a couple other questions about carbon fiber and prototypes.
You can run them by me, and I'll see if it's above or below my pay grade. Like, but like I think that's another thing. An important thing to do is to know your limit. I think lots of companies, they try to make the marketing guys seem like engineers or whatever. And, marketing and engineering should be kept separate. Like, don't let the marketing, that's what they have. Don't let the marketing team do the engineering, and don't let the engineering do the marketing. Like, I definitely think marketing should follow engineering though. Like, the engineering should decide how the bike gets made. And then the marketing's job is to show people that bike.
Yeah.
Don't have the marketing team go, hey, engineering team, we need a bike that does this because that will sell well. No, like, don't make a bike that will look good in marketing. Like, make a bike that people actually will like to ride.
Well, that's kind of important because you want them to buy your bike and then ride your bike.
Yeah, I mean, every company is here to make money, but if like the small things on a bike that isn't good for marketing, for example, like let me try to think of a specific example. Like on the Winspace frames, they build the cable guides into the frame, and so when you buy a Winspace frame, it's super easy to build up. You know, you don't have to try to use fishing wire or something to try to pull all the cables through and stuff. The cable guides are built into the frame. And like, so this is a decision that makes the bike an easier bike to build, but it's not something you can shout about in your marketing. Like, hey, we have these cable guides that you can make you like, it just doesn't sell well. But once you buy the bike and you build it yourself and you talk to your mates and you say, hey, this bike was so easy to build because, you know, it had these built-in cable guides and stuff. So I think these little things that, you know, maybe they're not good for marketing headlines, but they make for a better bike. I think in the long run, these small touches will, you know, spread well through word of mouth and people just think it's a good quality product or whatever.
I think every bike mechanic around the world, whether or not they work in local bike shops or at home, would actually appreciate proper cable routing inside of a frame.
Yeah. Like, speaking of which, like I had the Venge Vias when it first came out, and with the fully internal cable routers, it was great. But if you wanted to take a space route, you literally had to take every single cable out of the bike and re-cable the whole bike. So what should be a 2-minute job, you know, taking out a spacer and lowering the handlebars, turned into at least a 2-hour job because you had to pull out every cable of the bike. And so Winspace, they have fully integrated cables as well, but again, their spacers are the split kind, so you can get the spacer out without having to re-cable the whole bike. And Specialized does the same now on their latest bike, I think. So yeah, but that's one of those things where, yeah, someone thought of it and it was a good idea at the time, but then they didn't think about mechanics around the world swearing their heads off trying to just take a spacer out of a bike, which should be a 2-minute job.
Yeah. One of my friends built up a tarmac yesterday, and he had the same issue, that the cable was just rattling around inside of his frame. And there's nothing worse than spending 4 hours riding with someone and you can hear rattle.
Yeah. And yeah, it's one of those things that in the marketing it doesn't come across, but when you actually have the bike in your hands, then yeah, you'll notice it quickly.
Yeah. Okay, so delving into this, what is going to be in a lot of people's minds, and you and I've talked about this off air, but needs to be brought up. Is Winspace just an open mold frame, or is the frame and design process and the mold your own?
Yeah, and so Winspace, they design their own molds and they design their own bikes. And so you may see other brands with the same looking bike as a Winspace, but it's probably because GoTo, like Winspace's mother company, the OEM company, are making that bike for that brand. But of course, you know, our OEM customers have agreements with us that we're not allowed to say who we make bikes for or who they make bikes for. And so when someone in the comment section is like, oh, this bike looks just like a something, like, of course, it would make my job a lot easier if I could just say that's because we make the bike for someone. But such is the world that, you know, we GoTo are very happy with their OEM customers, and their OEM customers are very happy with them. And like, no one wants to tread on anyone's toes or anything. So try to keep a happy relationship. Sure, if you've spotted that these two bikes look the same, then hey, bingo, well done, you worked it out. You can probably rest assured, like probably buy the cheaper one, and you'll be happy. Yeah.
I think I know of one particular team who may race in the US that are riding your frames, but we're not allowed to mention that.
I know nothing. I know nothing.
Okay, and were there when it comes to the design of the frames, and we'll get to the wheels, but we'll just finish off this one with the frames. Were there any prototypes made and feedbacks from athletes and customers to refine your frame and wheels?
Yeah. So for the frames, so one thing Winspace do, they've been sponsoring like UCI Conti teams for a few years now. At the moment, they've been sponsoring the Minsk Cycling Club for a few years, and so at first, when I first came into Winspace and was looking at what they do and stuff, I was like, well, why are you sponsoring a race team? Like, it's 2020. Just take that money and sponsor some Instagram people instead. You'll get, you don't think that many people are watching UCI Conti races these days. And but they were like, oh no, the reason we do it is to get the feedback, like about the bikes and stuff. Like, because if you want to see who trashes it, like not trashes, but who gives a bike a good thrashing, it's a UCI Conti team. Like,
Not an Instagram model.
Well, funnily enough, that pretty girl with the nice sunglasses and a FDP of 75 watts probably doesn't give your bike the best workout ever. She might look good and she might get you a lot of clicks, but probably doesn't give you the best. When you want to know if your new layup, the computer says it's stiffer, but do you think it's stiffer or not? She probably can't give you the answer.
I don't think. No.
Yeah, no.
I'm leaving that one alone.
Well, oh, was that a joke about stiffness that went over my head?
Oh, you said it, not me.
And so, I think sponsoring athletes or like sponsoring a team definitely helps with the product feedback. And so, Winspace have been making their own bikes for 10 years now, and sponsoring I think UCI teams for 4 or 5 years. And so every generation they make, they'll use the feedback from the athletes who are using the previous generation. So that's probably the biggest help, just in terms of helping you develop the next generation, is asking your athletes, like, okay, this generation of bike, like, what's your favorite thing about it and what's your least favorite thing about it? Like, how could we make this better? And then for the prototyping stuff, like, and if we have a new version of something, it probably gets more tested by so in China we have a sponsored team as well. And so just because they're a lot closer, they probably do more of the prototyping stuff of our new models. Like if we have a new mold and we've only made it in one size just to test the layup or whatever, like that will probably get more prototyped by our Chinese team, just because they're a lot closer. We can send it to them a lot quicker, etc. And so our Chinese team, they probably don't have the same watts as the UCI Conti guys, but if the UCI Conti guys have an FDP of 400, like our amateur guys have an FDP of 380, like they're gonna be able to give it more or less the same kind of thrashing.
Yeah.
And so, for a quick turnaround, we'll have our local guys do their iterations on a newest model. And so, working with the UCI guys, they give us more of a feedback in terms of like direction where we should go. And then the local guys, they give us more feedback in terms of like, okay, we've tried this layup. You take it for a spin. Let us know what you think. And they'll say this, that, and the other. And then we can quickly iterate, and get it to a place where it should be.
So how many molds would you go through before you get the right frame, the right carbon layup, the design?
For an actual number, I'll get Roman to get me a better answer. Like, but from what I've seen, like, quite a lot. Like, I don't want to say a number because I'd be pulling a number out my trumpet. But like, quite a lot.
It's not a cheap process just to keep on building a bike to realize then you have to redesign it or use a different layout.
Yep. No, like, and so I'd say that's a big difference between the maybe the because there are lots of frames out there you can get direct from the factory, like super cheap. And so the carbon factories, like we'll say that this is what I call an unbranded frame, like literally a frame that has no logo on it. It just comes from a factory, and its name will be like, FM blah blah blah, which is just the mold name. And so these will be super cheap, and the carbon will be, in my opinion, like the carbon will probably be no problem. Like it will be light and it will be stiff and blah blah blah. But the factories, they know a lot about carbon, but they don't really know a lot about riding a bike. And so things like compliance and handling, like so geometry, like they might not understand that well. You give them a problem of, I want this frame to be, or this particular tube, I want it to have this much strength and this much weight, and they can give you a layup, no problem, that will do that. But if you say, oh, I want a frame, I want it to handle like a Cannondale Super 6 Evo from 5 years ago, because I think that was the pinnacle of handling, but I want it to have the compliance of a specialized Roubaix, because I think that thing just glides over rough roads. Like they'll look at you like, what? Like, because you can't, that's very hard for them to put it into a spreadsheet or whatever. And so I think that's when you have a brand, whether it be a big brand like Specialized or whoever, Cervelo, blah, 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 all the guys we know about, like who understand this stuff there, or a small brand like Winspace. Like that's where your difference is between these factory unbranded bikes. The unbranded bikes, sure, they know carbon, but maybe they don't really know a lot about bikes.
And that's where you guys differ, because you've got several engineers on board. Then you can go directly to the warehouse down the road and say, this is what we're after, this is what the engineers have said, and then those guys can build. Is that right?
Yep. So you got the engineers in-house who all ride bikes. Like before off air, I was saying to you, just last weekend, we all went out on a 2-day company outing and took a bunch of our new products out and we're riding it. And like all the development guys, they're all into riding bikes. And also we have our sponsored athletes giving us the feedback too, like we just said. And these are probably the two main things that make Winspace different to the other brands. Like I said before, when I first went to the Chinese bike show and met all these different brands, like the reason I chose to work with Winspace is because, they were just happy just to talk about bikes. Like they love bikes. Like they are cyclists. Like it's not just, lots of the factories who are at the Shanghai Bike Show, as well as making bikes, they also make like badminton rackets, or they make wheelchairs and stuff. And like, so today they're at the bike show, but next week they'll be at the badminton racket show, or they'll be at the wheelchair show. Whereas like Winspace, it's a bike brand. They just go to the bike shows.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, to me, that's the difference between an unbranded frame and a branded bike company frame. And the unbranded guys, they might get lucky and just happen to make a bike that handles perfectly or whatever, but they might not. It might ride like a pig. So
I think we hear more about the ones that don't ride so well than the ones that actually do. If you go through forums and troll people's posts, and they've bought OEM Chinese frames, there's more posts about them breaking or speed wobbles. Maybe that's because I can't ride, but definitely there seems to be some brands, including Winspace, that are able to develop a bike that you can ride and race, or be a weekend warrior, do it all.
Yep. Well, back to the speed wobbles. Maybe it's because the head tube isn't aligned properly. So we're going back.
Yeah, they've got a perfect bottom bracket, but that head tube.
Yep. See, they missed that one. But yeah, no, I agree with what you said. I think it's easy to find examples online of this breaking and that breaking from the big brands and also from the unbranded stuff. But one thing with the unbranded stuff, when you're buying a frame that's just called like an FM blah blah, or not just FM, like no matter what it is, that's just the mold name. These molds get sold and rented out between different factories as well. So maybe 2 years ago you brought, I'm just going to make up a number because I don't want to actually call out someone unmistakably. We'll say you brought a JW13 3 years ago, and it was great, and it handled great, had great compliance, blah, blah, blah. And then you tell me, oh, you should buy a JW13 too. So I go on AliExpress and I buy a JW13, and it's the same mold, but the mold's been passed to a different factory now. Maybe they use different carbon, the layup's different, like everything could be different. And so we have these two bikes that look the same, they're called the same thing, but yours is amazing and mine handles, well, it goes left very well, let's say, or the bottom bracket creaks all day. And so unbranded frames that are really unbranded frames, you just don't know you don't really know what you're getting. I know GCN last week, they did a video about unbranded frames. I wasn't too clear about whether they were talking about actually unbranded frames or just talking about lesser known brands.
Oh,
I think there's a big distinction.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. So
yeah, on the GCN section.
Yeah. You mentioned a UCI Conti team. So are your frames and wheels UCI certified at the moment? And I'll be clear, when I say UCI certified, I know with wheels, and for people that don't know, they basically drop weights on top of wheels to simulate you crashing into gutters, so to speak, at a various speed, which from my point of view is almost unrealistic. You do crash into gutters, sure, but if that's how they want to define it. I don't know what a UCI certification for a frame is. Maybe they drop weights on frames as well. Is that something you guys do, or have you looked at? Or
yeah, so Winspace's frames. So there are three main frames at the minute. There's the SLC, which is the climbing frame. There's the T1300, which is like the all-rounder, and then there's the T1500, which is the aero frame. So the aero frame is UCI approved. And like you said, so UCI approval, for people who don't know, is with frames, it's a bit more complicated and a lot more expensive than the wheels. The wheels is pretty easy to get your wheels UCI certified. In my opinion, it's not even, it's a bit of a joke, because these days they made the wheels process a lot easier. You can just make a video of it, and like you say, you drop a weight on the wheel, and you make a video and you send it to the UCI. You write them a big check, and they say, "Yeah, you're UCI certified." But if I have a fictitious company called Joe's Wheels, let's say, and I want to get my wheels UCI approved, I can do this test. Oh wait, it broke. Let's do it. Let's get another one. Do it again. I can do this 100 times until I get the video of it not breaking and send that to the UCI, and the UCI will go, "Yeah, mate, your wheels are great. UCI approved." There's no point. Like
it's a joke.
Yeah, but you can argue the same for frames as well. Like every frame that everyone is sending to the UCI to get approved, they will inspect that frame for hours and hours until they send it to them. Like they will NDT test it, they will X-ray it, they will do everything. So again, it's not in my opinion, it's not an accurate representation of the average frame that the consumer is going to buy off the shelf. Like the bike that the big brands send to the UCI to get certified, in my opinion, is not very reflective of the same big brand bike that you and I can go into the store and buy. So our T1500 is UCI approved, and we kind of got that one UCI approved just as like a test to ourselves, like, because we have our own internal standards and we want to see, oh, well, let's see if it meets UCI approved standards. Yeah. And it did, and it cost a lot of money, and we have to pass that cost on to our customers, obviously. But now that we know that our frames do meet UCI approved standards, whether or not we do that in the future, I mean, we'll listen to people. If it's something our customers want, then we'll keep doing it. If they'd rather we keep the frame prices down, then we'll probably pass on doing it. So, yeah.
Surely 90% of customers worldwide buying a bike would have zero idea what UCI certification means. Nor would they care.
Yeah, and the ones who do know what UCI certification is, like, they're probably pretty naive, and they think that UCI certification automatically means it's a good bike, which is not really the case. Like we talked about the Minsk, our sponsored team, the UCI Minsk team before. So they actually prefer to use our all-round bike, the T1300, because they do lots of flyaway races, and they're not like a pro world tour team. They can't take like 4 bikes for each rider. Like they're usually just taking 1 bike for each rider and a few spare bikes. And so they'll choose the T1300 just because it can do everything. And the T1300 is not UCI approved, but they race that in UCI races. No.
Yeah. I think in all the bikes that I actually currently own, only one of them is UCI approved.
Yep.
And it makes never mind to me.
Yeah, like I say,
and I did not buy that bike because it's got a UCI sticker on it. But I'm sure I paid $800 for that sticker.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally, so I wasn't at Winspace when they chose to give that frame UCI approved status, but I don't think it was a bad idea. Like, because now that they have one frame that has it, if I'm a customer who's never heard of Winspace before and I see that one of the frames has UCI approval, maybe it gives me a certain peace of mind that, okay, these guys, they must kind of know what they're doing because one of their frames got UCI approved.
It gives you legitimate status.
Yeah. Yeah. If people are into that, we'll keep doing it. If people would rather we keep prices down, then hey, maybe we'll do it less.
So tell us about the flagship model, the T1500. What were the major requirements for that bike? I know it's an aero bike. It is it's your top tier bike. Is it a crit bike? And it's obviously an aero road bike. Tell us about that bike.
Yeah, and so the T1500 was already fully developed before I even met Winspace for the first time. But so I can tell you what I know, but I can't really tell you like how it went step by step. But the T1500, as you say, is the aero bike designed primarily for like crit style racing. So with an emphasis on stiffness in mind. Like just because obviously crit racing, you're going to be accelerating out of lots of corners a lot. And also the geometry is also pretty aggressive. So when we talk about geometry, I think first an important thing to say is that lots of the Asian brands, including Winspace, their bikes are sized according to the actual length of the seat tube. Whereas in the West, if Specialized or Cannondale, whoever, their 52 centimeter frame, the seat tube length might only be 48 centimeters. Which I know why they do it, because it's in comparison to a traditional steel frame that has traditional a flat top tube or whatever. And so if you've always ridden a 52 centimeter steel frame, whatever, then you'll be a 52 centimeter forever in their eyes. And okay, I can see the logic, but the Asian thinking is no, like I'm going to use the actual size of the seat tube. So for example, for me, I ride a 52 centimeter Specialized, but I ride a 47 centimeter Winspace on my T1500. And my T1500 is maybe a little big. Like I'd rather ride a 44 centimeter, but I will admit to buying the bigger frame just because it looks nicer. Like I am that vain. No, I can ride any Winspace frame size I want, and so I have access to 44 centimeters, which I always also ride. But yeah, I was like, oh, the 47 centimeter looks a bit nicer. I'll get the 47. But to go back to what your original question, like if you look at the geometry charts, the stack and the reach on the T1500, it's a pretty aggressive bike. Like a low front end, pretty far away, and the fork rake as well, like designed to be. So with its wheelbase and the fork rake combined, like it's designed so it can turn in pretty nipply, but it can also be pretty stable while going around the corner.
Cool. And tell us about your new set of wheels.
Yeah, so the Hyperwheels.
Yeah.
This is more interesting because the Hyperwheels, when I first met Winspace, they like had the first prototypes here when I first came down to check the factory out, and I rode those And yeah, so lots of people always blah 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 about this technology and that technology and stuff, and they were talking about, oh, you gotta try these wheels with these carbon spokes, and I'm like, they're like, oh, it's really stiff and blah blah blah. And so like yourself, you know, I've ridden a lot of bikes and reviewed a lot of bikes, and everyone will tell you their new bike is the stiffest thing ever, and it's so responsive, and they'll use lots of these words to make you go, yeah, really. And so they were telling me this, and I was like, yeah, okay. And I went for the first ride on them, and I had to eat humble pie because I was like, okay, well, these actually do feel like amazing. It So the carbon spokes, the main advantage is that the carbon spoke will not stretch, whereas a steel spoke will stretch slightly. And so you end up with just a wheel that is A, laterally really stiff, but B, also accelerates like really well. So obviously with a traditional wheel, when you first start accelerating, the hub will rotate a tiny bit, and then the slack in the spokes will be some of the slack in the spokes will be taken up by the spokes, and then the rim will start to rotate and propel you forwards. Whereas with a carbon spoke, it's not going to stretch at all. And so your hub is still made of aluminium or whatever, and so that's going to have some slight stretching too. So it's not zero stretching, but compared to the spokes, the hub is probably a very small percentage. But so the result is just carbon spoked wheels that accelerate like really well. Especially you can really feel it when you're out the saddle as well, because then you have both advantages at the same time. So when you're out of the saddle, your pedal stroke is usually a lot less smooth. It's more like, you know, lots of torque and then no torque and then lots of torque. And so on a traditional steel spoked wheel, that's going to be like the spoke tension is going to keep going up and down as you have that pedaling style. And whereas on a carbon spoked wheel, you're going to notice the advantage a lot more there. And the second reason is obviously when you're out the saddle, you're also usually throwing the bike from side to side. And so then the lateral stiffness of the wheel is also going to be noticeable more too. And so on the Hyperwheels, which are Winspace's carbon spoked wheels, they have a really big flange, which helps with the spoke angle some more, which again is going to add to your lateral stiffness.
And was that all designed in-house?
Yep. And so the carbon spokes we don't manufacture in-house, but the hubs we designed in-house to work with these carbon spokes.
And how are the carbon spokes joined to the rim?
So they have. It's not like a lightweight wheel where it's the spokes bonded. Like these spokes are actually replaceable, and so they have a nipple, but it's slightly different to a traditional nipple, and it does actually have to go in from the top and be adjusted from the top. And so the Hyperwheels, they do have holes in the rim bed. So these days, everyone loves tubeless. And so having no spoke holes in your rim bed is a good advantage. But unfortunately, with the Hyper, you can't do that because the spoke nipples actually have to be adjusted from the head. But obviously, you know, you can still use tubeless tape and run them tubeless, no problem. But yeah, so the spokes are attached with a special nipple that goes into the rim through the rim head.
Mm-hmm. And what about the rear hub ratchet? Is that an in-house hub ratchet bearings?
Yeah, so it's in-house designed, but like the bearing sizes are standard bearing sizes, like a 6803 and a 6903 bearing. So they are ceramic bearings, and again, in the Hambini age, everyone is now going against ceramic bearings. Different strokes, different folks. If you like ceramic bearings, they're going to come with ceramic bearings. If you don't like ceramic bearings, you'll be able to buy steel bearings from whoever you like, HSK, whoever, to go back to steel bearings. Personally, I do like the ceramic bearings. I hate sounding like I work for a certain other brand that is known for ceramic things that have lots of speed, but ceramic bearings do roll very well. Yeah, I'm a fan of them. And
Me
so,
too.
yeah. And again, so I can understand Hambini's points about ceramic bearings, and I agree with his points about ceramic bearings. But if you are able to maintain them, and you keep them clean, and you keep water away from them, and whatever, then I think ceramic bearings do have lots of advantages over steel bearings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I don't think if you're going to spend the money on ceramic, ceramic bottom brackets, ceramic bearings in the wheels, you kind of want to look after. You want to look after them anyways. Of course, there's going to be people that don't, but so they do. That's just
like if you're doing bicycle touring or you're doing a ride around the world, I probably wouldn't use ceramic bearings. I'd probably use steel bearings. But if you're paying money to get all the performance out of your bike that you can, then if you want every single watt and every single advantage you can get, then in my opinion, I'm going to choose ceramic bearings.
And how do the Hypers handle crosswinds? Because I think we all know with the other brand that came out with carbon spoke wheels a few years ago, they did not handle crosswinds at all. They were atrocious to ride in. I didn't like to race on them. I raced with them once, and I like racing in wind, and I rode with them once, and it was the worst. I'd rather ride a disc. It was atrocious handling. Straight line, fine.
Whose were you using?
I think you can guess. A certain brand.
What are the kind of spokes that are bonded to the rim?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think those ones are very. That I've not had a set for a while. But if my memory serves, they're very, very big, and B, they're very, very flat, right?
Yeah. I think they're probably about 10 mil wide.
Yeah. I think the Hypers, if I'm not mistaken, are 3.5 mil, and also they do actually have an aero shape. They have an aerofoil. It's not an aerofoil, sorry. It's because it's symmetrical, but it's not a flat surface for the wind to push against.
It's like a DT aero wheel.
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, similar to like a Sapim aero spoke, that kind of profile to them.
Yeah.
So then they're not the biggest in the world. I have a set right next to me. Give me a sec, and I'll bring them over. Oh yeah. So yeah, we have here's a set I found earlier. But yeah, like you can see, they're not the biggest things in the world. Again, from the aesthetics point of view, I think people like the big chunky spokes because they think everyone will see instantly and know, oh yeah, that must be carbon spokes because they're so big.
Big flanges as well.
Yeah. So our flange also, I don't know how well it's going to come up, but yeah, the flanges are very big, but they have holes in them, so the crosswind's not going to attach them too much, and also obviously helps with weight reduction as well.
That was pretty cool. So there's some very nice titanium and steel bikes coming out of China. Will you be looking at making bikes out of tie or steel in the future?
Anything's an option. Like so, we're not the biggest team in the world. We don't have the unlimited resources of maybe the bigger brands out there. So we'd rather do less things and do it well than try to do everything and not do it very well. Like so. These days, Winspace are doing less and less mountain bike stuff just because their expertise is in road bikes. Like most of the guys here, they all ride road. They don't really ride mountain, and so they don't have the passion to really develop a mountain bike stuff, and they don't really have the experience in riding mountain to put that into the products. And so steel and titanium, like you say. They have their merits along with aluminium. I think aluminium is also a fine material to make frames out of, like if you do it right. But at the moment, like, yeah, do what you're good at. And at the moment, that's carbon for us.
Yeah. And what new products do you have coming through development right now? Can you tell us or show us?
There's lots of stuff that's very strategically placed around here. So at the moment, we have like there are 3 bikes coming in the immediate future.
For everyone watching, I've actually put Joe on the spot because he has told me of a few products coming through, perhaps, but he may not be able to tell us about them at the moment.
Yeah, no, whatever. I've got thick skin. So the 3 things I can talk about. 4 things. Let's go for 4 things.
4.
Number 1, there's a new TT bike coming, which is a disc brake TT bike. Obviously, disc brakes. You might be thinking, why do you need a disc brake on a TT bike? You know, I'm not thrashing down any hills or anything on my TT bike in terms of, but obviously switching to disc brakes opens up the options for width of your rim. You can have a lot fatter rim on your wheels, and therefore get even more aero. And the CFD tests that were done on our side said that the gains made from having wider rims outweigh the drag caused by the disc brake rotors and calipers and other associated paraphernalia. And also with disc brakes, it's easier to set it up as fully internal too. Like all of the cables totally hidden, etc. And so yeah, we have a fully internally cabled disc brake TT bike that's coming soon. And then there's a pair of bikes which are very closely related but different, and there's a cyclocross bike and a gravel bike. And so yes, lots of people maybe can't tell the difference, or maybe lots of people think gravel bikes are just cyclocross bikes and it's just marketing trying to make you buy another bike or whatever. But I'm sure you know cyclocross bikes and gravel bikes do have a difference. I'm not saying you can't do gravel on a cyclocross bike and you can do cross on a gravel bike. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you know, the gravel bike is going to be a lot more stable going down like a gravelly descent, whereas the cyclocross, which is designed to weave around small corners, is going to be able to get around a tight cyclocross course a lot better. And then also other things like the gravel bike has a lot more mounts for, I can't remember how many, I saw the prototype of it, and I've never seen so many water bottle mounts on a bike ever. So, hey, you can put lots and lots and lots of water on it.
Well, if you're going to go to Dirty Cancer in 350 kilometers, you want a lot of mounts.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many disadvantages to having so many mounts, I guess.
Except your bike weighs a ton.
Use them. Yeah, I mean, you know, those 3 gram aluminium rivnuts are gonna add up eventually. And I know on the inside of the frame, they do reinforce the frame with a bit of extra, like I think they use 3K carb.
Your
programs will also add up.
Your audio cut out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and like they do have to reinforce the inside of the frame a bit for these rivnuts. So maybe all of that weight will add up a little bit. But hey, it gives you the option of having, like you say, doing Dirty Kansas with all of the water. You don't have to stop at any rest station. You can carry 20 items with you from the start. Good luck on the hills.
Yeah, I think just some very low gearing and you'd be fine.
Yep. And so that's 3 of the things. And then the
just
4th thing.
I'll just stop you. Are you developing your own gravel and CX wheels as well?
Yep. Yeah, there's 650B and a 700C gravel wheel also coming out very soon. I also lots of companies will say, oh, if I have a bike brand called Joe's Bikes, they'll say, oh, I only ever ride Joe's bikes, blah 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 blah. Like, we ride everyone's bikes, like, and anyone who tells you they don't, either A, they're lying, or B, they're stupid, because if you're not riding everyone else's bikes, you don't know what you're missing. Like, you don't know what you should be aiming for or anything. So we ride everyone's bikes, and I'm currently building up a titanium gravel bike that's built around 650B, and so yeah, I've been pushing Winspace a lot to develop their 650B gravel wheels, so I have something to use. Like, no bias here, but if the 650B comes out before the 700C, that's why. So it could go on my titanium gravel bike. Corruption is everywhere.
It must be good to work at a bike manufacturer.
It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. Like, I'm not complaining. And so the gravel wheels are coming out, but the gravel wheels are also coming out alongside we have a new, like, more affordable wheel range, because, like, so the Hypers have been doing really, really, really well. Like, every time we get a batch in, they sell out, and we're trying to make them as quickly as we can. But thanks to Corona and everything, like, all of these factories got backlogged and because cycling is taking off around the world too. Like, all these factories now have so many orders from so many brands and stuff. So everything's just taking a lot longer than it should. But our Hypers have been really, really, really successful. And, like, at their price point, they're super competitive. Like, they're $1,100 US, but that's with filament wound rims and carbon spokes and the ceramic hubs and whatever. I think I don't want to get it wrong. Let me just double check the weight. Let me look. I should know these things, shouldn't I? Where are we? Let me look. I don't want to miss a decimal place and get flamed in the comments. Give me 2 seconds. Where are we? There we go. Yeah. So, for example, our, like, 50 mil rim brake clincher version of the Hypers is, like, less than 1,350 grams, and that's tubeless ready and everything. So, $1,100, like, for what you get, is a great bargain. But one of Winspace's ethos is that, like, cycling is for everyone, and so $1,100 for these wheels is a relative bargain, but $1,100 is still a lot of money. And so we always pay a lot of attention to, like, the budget ranges. I shouldn't use the word budget range. You can say I'm not very professional at this. The more affordable range, let's say, or whatever the other big brands, whatever term they use for this.
I think some of them. Stuff. I think there's one of the brands this week came out saying a budget set of wheels. So there you go. Well, you go with budget.
Oh. Yeah. Okay. We'll use this. But no. But that's kind of what I like about Winspace as well. Like, they're not on the whole marketing hype train. You can't say this, you can say this. Like, they call it how it is, and they say what it is. So yeah, the world needs wheels that are affordable. Yeah, especially if you're doing crit racing and stuff. People need low barriers to entry to racing. The more people that can get racing is better. Like, racing bikes should be for everyone. And so to that end, they're working on a new range of more traditional wheels, like with steel spokes instead of carbon spokes and stuff. But for the price, they're gonna be very good. I know on the rims, they have a new special technology where they need no painting on the carbon. So literally, it's the raw carbon finish. So usually, any carbon wheels you get before, like, it may look like raw carbon, but it has a clear coat on there.
Yeah.
But just in the past few months now, this technology came out, I'm sure someone will correct me and tell me this technology came out like 20 years ago or whatever. But in the mainstream, this technology now has just came out in the past few months, where now you can actually have a raw carbon finish. And so that saves you quite a lot of weight on the rim, but also it looks pretty cool too.
Yeah,
like the way the carbon catches the light and stuff.
Yeah, I got to say a raw carbon finish without I think it's a lacquer on. It's not paint. I think it's a lacquer that they put over it. Raw carbon looks 10 times better than what a paint job does. It just looks. If you have a look at any of the Lamborghinis which have the raw carbon, it looks just amazing. It really does.
Yep. But traditionally, if you did that, like, it would look good at first, but then the resin would get broken down by the UV light and stuff. So there were all sorts of, and like maybe water ingress and all these problems to solve. But now they've developed the resins, or they've developed whatever they need to develop. Like I say, I'm no engineer. But yeah, they're now at the point where they can actually do it. Oh, I think audio's gone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just cutting in and out. We're back.
Okay. We're back.
We're live again.
So yeah, now they're at the stage where they can do this zero coding. Did I forget to pay my internet bill?
Is that one of your jobs?
No.
We've got some technical difficulties. I don't work in IT.
But the woman whose job that is, we took her riding a bike. No. Oh no. Turn it off and turn it on again. I think that's the go-to approach.
We may have lost you for good.
Come on, Zoom.
This is the difficulties of when you're trying to talk to someone 5,500 kilometers away.
I mean, yeah, we can't complain too much, can we?
No.
It seems to be better now.
Let's have a look. Yeah, you're a bit stuttery.
That's probably just how I sound.
I've just stopped the video until we may get this sorted. I'll go and have a look at my. I'm not sure it's on my end. Oh, we're still there. All right, I'm back. How are you doing?
We're back.
Yeah.
I've changed to my other Wi-Fi.
Ah, excellent. There we go.
This one's not bad actually.
Oh, so someone was downloading some torrents.
Yeah, I think. I won't make the joke I was going to make in case someone takes it seriously.
I doubt we'd find out in the comments if they did. So I think we're just about to finish up, anyways. And what? This is the problem, having a break. I can't remember exactly what we were talking about.
I was just talking about the new affordable wheels.
The new affordable wheel set. Go.
Yeah. And so zero coating this carbon fiber, like you said, like it does look different to your carbon with a coating, whatever. And one thing about it, which when they first brought it over, the one of the guys was like, "Oh, Joe, there's a big disadvantage with this." I was like, "What is it?" He's like, "Oh, look," and he starts touching the rim, and so like the rim, it's a real fingerprint magnet. It gets fingerprints all over it. And he's like, "Oh, look at this!" But like the way the fingerprints, like it makes kind of like this mottled effect, and the way it reflects light, like looks really cool. It almost looks like some ancient like sword or something. I was like, "Mate, this isn't a problem. It's a feature. Like this looks great." And like so, I was taking some photos of some before. Like before I was taking the photos, I was like putting my grubby hands all over it on purpose, trying to get this mottled effect even more. And the guy's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He's like, "I've got this to wipe off your fingerprints." I'm like, "No, more fingerprints, more fingerprints." It's hard to explain.
So if we get a set of the wheels, we're going to have a copy of your fingerprints as well.
Oh, that's dangerous. Yeah, I should be thinking about that. Oh no, yeah. Someone's going to be unlocking my iPhone.
Yeah, keep your iPhone close, because we know that you've got enough followers out there. They're probably after your fingerprints by now.
Oh no. Yeah, but more affordable wheels, more people racing bikes. I think it's a good thing.
I also, from a business standpoint, the more people that ride bikes who then possibly might get into racing will then look at upgrading wheels anyways. And back to your point of $1,100 for a set of wheels with ceramic bearings. That's for the people that want those wheels. That's actually quite easy. That's a very, very reasonable price point.
Yeah. Again, when so I have to wear my hat of Winspace international marketing, blah blah. Of course, I'm going to tell you, "Oh yeah, this is a great deal. It's a great deal." But literally, go out there and try to find a better deal. Like I tried, and it's tough. Like carbon spokes, filament wound rim, ceramic bearings at this weight, like.
And they look pretty hot too.
Again, we all like to justify our purchases and say, "Oh, it's because of this," or "Oh, it's because of that." But really, you bought it because it looked nice. Like me, with my 47 centimeter frame, like I should ride a 44, but the 47 just looks nicer, so I bought the 47. Yeah. I could lie and say, "Oh, it's because I wanted stiffness, something." No. It just looked nicer, so I bought it. So.
Yeah, I think everyone's gone through the same thing. Buying a bike, buying a helmet, all the way down to socks.
Yeah. The ongoing sock debate. Where do you fall on this debate? What do you think is the correct length for a sock?
I don't like ankle socks, but I do have a set of. I've got quite a few sets actually of the Rule 28 calf socks. So
okay.
My socks may exceed some limits set upon me. But they say the sock length can't be past the middle of your calf. But if your calf is quite big, or if you're tall, then that's going to differ between person to person. So there's no.
Gotta get the scissors out. So what you're saying is your socks do not have a UCI approved sticker on them, right?
No, they certainly don't.
It's terrible. How will you ever become a pro, right?
I don't know. Whereabouts do you fall on the sock debate then? Let's cause some controversy.
I don't know if I'm that controversial. Like I think just below the halfway line is pretty good for me. Like I got pretty short legs anyway, and so maybe the average person's ankle socks end up coming at halfway up my leg anyway. But yeah, I think just under the UCI limit is actually a good place to go. Like you say, I think as soon as I see ankle socks, I'm just I can't. No, sorry.
And what about black socks?
I'm a white socks, white shoes guy.
Yeah. Oh, you love your shoes. I know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Always wear shoes.
That's a very good point. I know in terms of, we're going well off Winspace topic talking about shoes and socks, but it's
wherever it goes.
That's exactly right. Well, I think that pretty much about covers everything. We know about your sock length. And we know that you like white socks, white shoes. I think we've covered the two most important topics that we have to talk about today.
And done. That's the important thing to take away from this meeting.
And Instagram models like stiffness in their bikes.
Yep. If you want to know about stiffness, don't ask your UCI protein. Ask your Instagram models.
And with that, we might leave it.
On that bombshell.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much, Joe. I appreciate your time today. It was good chatting with you, meeting you, seeing you for the first time as well. For those that don't know, usually Joe doesn't show his face. He's a man of mystery.
There's a reason for that. Face for radio, as my mother would say.
So look forward to having a test in the future, and we will have a look at your Hyperwheels as well, I think, quite shortly. And if you have any questions for either Joe or myself, then put them down below. Joe's quite willing to have a chat to you.
Yep. Just no rubbish, no brainwashing. Just everyone ride your bike more. If you want to get faster, maybe you can buy something faster. Maybe you can train to get faster. Be cynical. Like if someone tells you something's going to make you a lot faster, maybe think about it before you buy it. And yeah, just everyone enjoy riding bikes and enjoy racing bikes and do it safely. And don't remortgage your house to do it.
I think that's some pretty good advice. I think you've always got to enjoy riding bikes, and if you want to put more people on bikes, you want to see people, and I, for one, I want to see more people riding bikes. Completely off topic, but today I've got twin girls, and one of my girls rode today for the first time without any training wheels.
Wow.
So I was very, very happy, man, this afternoon.
Congrats. How old?
4.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, 4 and not training wheels, that's good.
Oh yeah, I've been training them. I've told them that they can do any sport they want as long as it's cycling.
Yep.
All right, Joe, I will let you go there. Thanks very much for your time, and we shall chat very shortly.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Bye-bye.
All right.